Hello, Steve White, Triple 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, one thing that came out of Star Trek Day that was kind of interesting was the references to Starfleet Academy. Mostly because they referenced Starfleet Academy over Section 31. They may have worked out Section 31 is the antithesis of Star Trek and probably not what you should make a series of, whereas Starfleet Academy is actually a really good choice. I'm actually totally for Starfleet Academy because part of the problems with Discovery and Picard and the JJ films is they never get to exploring space and being Star Trek. They're just constantly in this state of destroying Star Trek, then putting it back together and then defining what it is, and then saying, now we know who we are, now we know what Star Trek is, what Starfleet is, now we know where we're going, now we're going to go boldly. And then they never do. That's where the film ends, that's where the show ends, that's where the season ends. And then the next season they go back and reset and they don't know what Star Trek or Starfleet is anymore, and they're acting like they're not Starfleet and they're not Star Trek. And then they spend a whole season learning how to be Starfleet again, and then promising to boldly go and then at the end of the season and then go back to the start again. That's to them what the Star Trek story is now, is discovering what Star Trek and what Starfleet is, not actually being it and exploring, but just going through this endless cycle of learning. It's all about the journey, not actually being there and enjoying being there and what you learn from being there. That's what the original Star Trek was. They've changed what the story of Star Trek is for their shows. And that doesn't work in Star Trek, that doesn't work in Picard, that doesn't work in, it won't work in Strange New Worlds. But where it would work is Starfleet Academy, because that's what Starfleet Academy is. It's young people learning what Starfleet is, learning what Star Trek is, the audience learning what Star Trek is, through these young people going through that journey. That works. If they had done a Starfleet Academy series instead of Discovery or instead of Picard, that would have worked. That would have done what they wanted to do, which was just rehash and restate what Star Trek is to promote it and get younger people or people who aren't familiar in. Kind of like some of the dialogue scenes in First Contact where they're teaching Zefram Cochrane that what Starfleet is in the future. That sort of element is fine, unless that's the whole story. Part of the story is good, and in Starfleet Academy that would work. I can understand that. That's what they should have done. They should have done, just started off with Starfleet Academy, had Michael Burnham in Starfleet Academy learning how to be the bestest ever, and then at the end she goes off and gets her own ship because she saves the world a bunch of times. That would have worked. But having her on the ship, constantly overriding her superiors and making it all about her, and not having ensemble and not having the crew come together and solve all their problems through their diversity and differences. It's all about just one person rescuing everyone else like a superhero. That doesn't work. But they could have done that. That would have worked more in Starfleet Academy, where these people are learning who they are as individuals, as opposed to already knowing who they are and knowing how they fit in the world and how they come together and how they work. That's what Star Trek is. So that would have been interesting. That I can see, and I'm happy with them doing. More so than Section 31, which is all about the antithesis of Starfleet, the antithesis of Star Trek, where it's saying, no, we failed at actually having a utopia. We can't have utopia unless we have these right-wing war criminals in the background doing all these things, so everyone else can live happily in denial that, we've got utopia, because of all the bad things happening behind, which is, of course, looking at today's government and how today's government works, where you have the public face for everyone, and then you have what we're really doing, behind the scenes. And that's a criticism of today that works in some science fiction series as allegory, but not as Star Trek, where they've eliminated that. Gene eliminated that. In the future, we didn't have that anymore. We had moved past that. But Deep Space Nine, Ira Burr, whoever put that in there, that's why I have issues with Deep Space Nine. I respect it as good writing and a good show, a science fiction show. I did watch it as Star Trek. The first couple of years, I loved it. Once they got into war and it became clear they had an agenda for pro-war and for pushing this whole idea that utopia never existed. It wasn't corrupted, it just never existed. We always had this bad element behind it, and the only reason why they were able to have their happy, perky, little, rich, entitled utopian lives were because we had these good people in the background, doing all these dirty deeds to keep that facade up. And that's a really disingenuous thing that they did to Gene and his vision in Star Trek, and that's why I don't like Deep Space Nine, because they kind of corrupted it. They kind of started it with that intention, but because Gene wasn't. I don't think. I don't know if Deep Space Nine was totally developed after Gene died, but it was put in production after he died. I'm not sure what groundwork they laid before then, but they certainly just went to town after he was gone. So it started off being a lot more like Star Trek, just in one spot, in one space station. That worked as just a change in location. But then they started to change all the other elements, and that's when it stopped working for me. But I've talked long enough. I just wanted to talk about that because I thought it was interesting. I'd like to see where they go with it, but they would have done a better job doing Starfleet Academy than Discovery or Picard. But maybe it'll be one of the things that saves Star Trek. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.